And then I realized I'm really angry at every single man. It's because my father left me when I was 8.
This is probably on some level inappropriate for me to do so, but some part of me doesn't give a shit because I'm your brother. It actually hurts to sort of feel that, you know, what men can do to women, and that we could leave you feeling less than whole after you give us so much. Like, you give us everything. You give us life. Actually, I've watched my wife birth, and yeah, I just wanted to say I'm sorry.
Aside from my soul,
Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and we have with us today Steffi Seefeld. Steffi, how are you?
Hi, it's so great to be here.
Oh my God, man.
Great to be here.
It is such a treat to be here. We were just remarking before the episode got started, it's been 5 years since we connected. It was Mind Valley University, right?
It was Mind Valley University in Tallinn, Estonia.
Yeah, such a beautiful place. Oh my God. And it was the first one they had in Estonia. They seem to be having them all in Estonia now. They sort of feels like they've given up on moving it to different cities every year. They just realized that we were the best batch of students.
They're just trying to replicate it again.
Yeah, that epic moment in time that we were there. No, I'm just kidding.
It was epic.
But not really. Pardon me. Sorry guys, this episode is going to be a bit like this because Steffi and I are super good friends even though we haven't seen each other for 5 years. There is just that connection where you meet some people and you just know them super duper well. And I have to do the honors. Steffi, what do I say? It's transformation junkie, ecstatic dancer, profound meditator, full of insights as a facilitator and a public speaker is probably the most appropriate thing to introduce you as. There is, and I even know that does not, it's trying to put you in a box, and yet you are beyond sort of boxes and boundaries. So it's a real pleasure and a treat for us to have you here today. I'm really excited to see where the conversation takes us. Thank you so much for doing this.
Me too. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Man. So you've been on a bit of a journey in terms of your own process and transformation. And let's just start with the transformation. I don't really like using the word transformation junkie, but let's just go there. For someone that's consistently changing, like, you know, I think you even refer to the word as change muscle, like you're always strengthening your change muscle, which I think is a really nice way of putting it. We can expand on where that came from potentially, but I'd like to rewind a little bit into, do you ever look back at the young girl Steffi and go, oh yeah, I sort of see where she got her addiction to change all the time? Or was she always a change agent? Was she always someone that was, you know, or is it something that happened as a consequence of something? Yeah, tell me about like the 8-year-old, 9-year-old Steffi. Yeah, I like change agent more than junkie too.
Yes, I look back a lot lately, actually. Like, I feel like the last few years have been just a very intensive, like, you know, sometimes there's just a phase of constant little changes, and they're, you know, they're there, and you're proud of them, and you're going through it, but it's happening almost like naturally. But then there's also a phase where it's just like a slap from the universe here, and then you're recovering, and then it's slap there and the slap there, and you're like, wait, what? A year ago, that was me? Like, wow.
It's really interesting hearing you delineate the difference between the two, because I definitely resonate with what you're saying. There are moments where you're just being spoon-fed like change day by day, and almost to the point where you don't see yourself, it's like going to the gym, right? Like, you don't see the transformation, but then you just look back and you're like, actually, yeah, I'm different. But then there's some moments in life where you're just like, wow, like, whoa.
Yes.
Okay, there is a silver lining to this. Where is it? Oh, there it is. You're right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about where you're at. Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it depends on how deep we want to go.
All the way deep. Don't hold back. Don't hold back. This is you and I. We've got an opportunity. Yeah.
I think last year was my deepest knowing that little Steffi, or getting to know the little Steffi time. And I've been a coach, and I've been trained to being coach and reflecting for like a decade. And even my mom was like, wow, it took you this long to realize that you have unworthiness because your father left you? It's like, yeah, it sounds so obvious, but it just hit me.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. We can do all the work, but you're just ready for what you're ready for.
At the time that you are, can you tell us a little bit about what brought you into readiness at this time, you think?
I mean, the biggest piece was just total surrender and really readiness to just surrender every little identity I have, like idea of identity I have about myself. And it was upcoming. I was living the life that I thought I loved. I had an incredible, I had an incredible life in San Francisco, the apartment I always dreamed of.
Sorry, I'm smiling because that's the tagline of the Inspired Evolution.
Yeah.
Live a life you love. But yeah, and I was like, now everybody tuning in knows why there's this kinship. Anyway, please, you're living the life you love. I've butted in. Which I probably did 5 years ago. She was living the life she loved and I butted in then as well. But anyway, sorry. You're living the life
That's
you love
hilarious.
in San Francisco. Yeah. And
San Francisco, the job was like, I finally made money again after a period of just like hustling, and then it was just everything just felt great, except for nothing really felt great. Like I wasn't working many hours, but I always wanted more free time. I finally made networking and connections with people and organizations that I wanted to, but it wasn't good enough. Like, nothing was feeling like it should in that moment, and I was like, something is gonna pop. I just don't know what and how and where yet. But something needs to pop inside me, like for me, like something's going to change. And then I was just...
Wait. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you're succeeding, but there's you're feeling a lack of fulfillment is what I'm hearing.
Lack of fulfillment. And what I've noticed, because I analyze, okay, how can I identify next time I'm going through change? How can I identify...
Yeah. It's also the bane of the coach's existence because you are conscious of your transformations, because then you also want to be able to facilitate it for others. I totally resonate. Yeah.
And the awareness piece, and I was like, okay, I was trying to compensate. I was trying to compensate with physical health and physical, like go outside, wake up that morning, or at that time in the morning, do this amount of hours of meditation, do this and this, and then everything will be great because you're taking care of yourself. But that can become an obsession. Like I've noticed, if I become obsessed about my health, something's up.
Yeah. I can appreciate where you're coming from. Very interesting insight. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, let's just chill. And I noticed then you're
expecting something to pop.
Yeah, I'm expecting something to pop. And even other people are like, I feel like change is coming for you, like a big change. I was like, oh yeah, I hope so. And you have no idea.
Where does that voice come from? Because I want to know that voice as well. That was going to be where this question was going to. Where's that voice come from within you?
That was coming from within me, but also from other people around me that are attuned, either spiritually or just very mindfully. And they just felt, it was just a feeling. It was like, I can't, it's not tangible, but it's an intuition.
Okay.
It's an intuition, right? And it was a silly example. Like for me, it's like a silly example, but it was so profound. My parents were going to come visit, and I looked at my calendar, and this is where it gets a little silly. I was like, fuck. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I'm going to be PMSing when my parents are there. And this has been a theme between my parents and I. And I'm not the greatest to be around my parents when I'm PMSing. And I was like, and I got so upset. Upset, yes.
Before
that
anything was.
Yeah, and I was pissed for 2 days. And I was like, okay, this is too much. Like, this can't be the truth, right? And so noticing, awareness of, okay, this has nothing to do with that. What's underlying? And I just started to cancel everything. And that's an important step, right? Just realizing it's not about my parents. It's not about my PMSing. It's something way deeper. And because it was 2 days upset, like I'm not upset about anything for 2 days.
2 days,
And why about that? And so I just stopped and journaled the entire weekend.
Right.
And just, found out, okay, well, I'm projecting to my mom that she would judge me for certain things, but it's not her, it's me. I'm judging myself for not showing up a certain way, for being weak, for having shame around certain things. And I was like, okay, where's this coming from? And then I just literally took a break for 2 weeks at least. Didn't leave my apartment, stopped the work. And that's my way of doing things. Like, I'm just extreme. I can't stretch it out and just go on with days and people that I used to hang out with and used to do. I just
incubate. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did that, and a lot of things came up, and that was the time where I just let go of all the identities. From identities of you have beautiful skin to identity being a great coach, being a great daughter, being a great friend, everything. And I wrote it all down on Post-its and just like, I'm letting go of that, letting go of that, letting go of that, burn it. And just did a lot of rituals. And some exercises too that I got from Bill Plotkin. Are you familiar with Bill Plotkin?
No.
Okay, Bill Plotkin is a nature psychologist, and he takes people on these adventures out in nature, extreme adventures. And he wrote a book called Soul Canyon. It's not just the title Soul Canyon, but basically you're going into Soul Canyon. You're getting to know you.
Yeah.
And so these 2 weeks turned probably into like 6 months.
Yeah, right.
And I was just in it, and it wasn't a depressive phase. Like, people were like, were you depressed because you were only inside, you're only doing you? It's like, no. All the energy that I usually put outside on other people, I was just shining that light inside. I just really had to get to know myself. And part of that was, actually, I wrote a book. I didn't write a book. I read a book, Alicia Keys' autobiography.
Oh, yeah.
And I read it until the very end, and I kept like 2 or 3 pages left. And at some point I was ready to finish that book, and it was about her realizing her unworthiness because of her father. And I was like, oh shit, that's it. That's me. That's that little girl. Because my intention for healing during that time was, I want to heal whatever is inside me that keeps me away from having this really amazing relationship with my soulmate partner. And
say that again.
My intention was to heal anything that's inside me that keeps me away from being in a relationship with my soulmate partner.
You had preset that intention prior to this realization.
Yes. Yeah. And then I realized I'm really angry at men out there in the world, at every single man. And then I was just sitting with that anger, and then I realized, oh yeah, it's because my father left me when I was 8. And that just unworthiness that was inside me. And then, of course, that was sad. But I am so blessed and grateful and fortunate that I have the relationship with my mom that I have, and I could call her the next day or like maybe a week later to be like, I want to share something with you that I just realized. And if it was such a bonding, of course, tearful conversation, but that's when she was like, I can't believe it took you this long to realize it. But we're both grateful that it came out, because now this is the part of transformation. Like, I can't, I have a choice. In that moment, I have a choice to just make that my story now that I'm aware of it and just be the victim of that. Or I have a choice and be like, okay, feel all the feelings and let the feelings of that touch you and shake you up and break you down, and then do something with it, because that past doesn't need to be your future. You can change, right? And what I did, I applied Dr. Joe Dispenza's method of, okay, what are your thoughts, what are your behaviors, and what are your feelings when you feel unworthy? And when do you feel unworthy around man? I wrote pages, pages on thoughts. I mean, when I saw couples walking down the street, my judgment, I was like, oh my God. And the level of awareness I then got, it's like, wow, these are all slipping by your awareness unnoticed. But now that I'm aware of it, I can do something with it. I can stop them and actually make a choice. What do I want to think instead? How do I want to behave instead? How do I want to feel instead?
Is it as tiring as it sounds? Because you've got your subconscious mind, which is cluing into triggers that have come through from an internal wound that you've been carrying most of your life, and you're not even cognizant of them, and then you bring this awareness to those triggers. Now you're aware that those triggers are there, and not only are you aware, you're now also bringing those unconscious thoughts to conscious thoughts and then trying to rewire them. Sounds exhausting.
It is. I'm laughing because absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. And it's like, if we look at our mind, it's 95% of unconsciousness running against 5% consciousness.
Yeah.
So I feel like our work is to become more conscious. Like, you know, just self-awareness and awareness, and so that we can actually stop creating the same thing over and over again. And just for ourselves, or even intergenerationally? I think intergenerationally, of course, yeah. I mean, I can't change anybody else's behaviors or what has happened, but I can change how it affects me.
Yeah.
And the more I change, right, you as a parent, like, what do you want to pass on?
Totally. Yeah. It's something I've been remarking on. Sorry, I butted in. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it quite remarkable that, what gave you the willingness / the strength / the gusto? Is it just because you are the change agent that you were like, I'm willing to do something different? I know the old way wasn't working. I'm just going to persevere out of this. Or was there like what was driving you to do such heavy lifting through Joe Dispenza's work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think several things. I think once the universe shows you, or you're ready and it comes up out of you, however you want to phrase that, I can't just let it be there and not do anything about it. There's trust that it's for me right now. And then there's also the surrender piece, that this readiness for total surrender, because if I realize, or when I realize that the suffering, even though it's been unconscious, like I was never a sad child or a sad teenager or a sad adult because of that, but
I
now,
don't know you as sad at all. Yeah.
You know, but now that I know that, I would probably become a sad person. Now that I know that, I would become a victim, and that's not what I want. And so I think if the pain is big enough, or if the struggle would be big enough, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to do whatever. I mean, 6 months of not working, not knowing of any, you know, like, this was obviously the big piece of work for me, but it was also, I was like, I hated coaching. I was like, coaching is disgusting. I'm never going to do that again, you know? Like, really just let it all, like, just burn it all away. I was thinking about becoming a death and birth doula, and still very present and beautiful. But just allowing that all to be truth for a moment, and not take it seriously, but take it seriously enough. And I think what also made me, just because it's work, and trust that even though money is not coming in, there will be money at the perfect time. There will always be enough money. Just really trusting, like a lot of trust into yourself, and also the universe provides.
And the support mechanisms, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And speaking of support mechanism, I think I've established a very strong internal support mechanism that I can rely on, and also an external one. Like, I have such a wonderful network of friends and loved ones that were there for me, and that were able to be there for me as friends, but also as, you know, therapists, really, or mentors, or just listeners and just holders, or to allow me to do that.
Steffi, your own inner resources, having and I know you personally, such a deep well of inner resilience and such a depth to be able to, like you said, I'm paraphrasing, but hold space for yourself in such a deep way. some of the reflection you've been doing, was that well carved so deep potentially by this wound that you've been unpacking? Or is that too convenient for me to say?
No, I think that has to do with it. That has definitely to do with that. I mean, part of why I allowed myself to think coaching and me as a coach, not coaching in general, but me coaching is disgusting, was because I noticed I'm naturally so good at some of coaching that because of my past, because of my childhood, because of XYZ, and not just because of my dad, but also other family members or other dynamics. And I was like, I don't want to create my life around something that was actually a wound and pain for me as a child. Yeah. And, you know, combined with I was still the sunshine as a child. Like my mom would always call me, you know, you're my sunshine. And like I would bring her joy in her tough times, right? As a single mom doing all the things. And so I lived up to that sunshine unconsciously too. Like, thank God. Like I love that. I love that unconscious programming when it's healthy. But I think, yes, absolutely. Those have given me resilience, that has given me also the support system and the trust. Like being unconditionally loved by a mother, no matter what happened with the father or other family members. I think that is just a constant that gives me so much internal trust and somebody has my back no matter what. Even though things aren't always fluffy puffy between my mom and I, right? We have our conversations. Yeah.
And you not only happened across Joe Dispenza's work, but it helps you so much that you sort of went, well, yeah, Steffi on it. we don't do anything lightly around here. Our way through everything. So, so tell us about where that took you with Joe's work.
Yeah, I think that is really powerful because it wasn't just that I went down into Soul Canyon with the more therapeutic, going into my past, figuring out who I was, how I did become this person, but
that
simultaneously
was
Bill Plotkin.
Plotkin, sorry. Yeah.
But simultaneously, while this can all happen and realizing I can work on that, I can also simultaneously work on breaking the habit of being myself and reinventing my new one. I have a choice, and realizing that and knowing that and understanding the neuroscience behind that I have the ability to prune these neurological networks that are, you know, connected to the past and how my body is conditioned to that past. And I have the tool to sprout new neurological networks or connections and reinvent my new self. And knowing that, and honestly, I'm an experienced learner. So I don't need all the science to trust in it yet. Like, I'm not a very skeptical person when I like something. So I was like, the worst thing that could happen is that I meditated a few minutes a day. You know, the risk is really low. The pain that could, you know, it's not bad if I tried this.
That's a great frame. That's a really good way to look at it. It's like, so the worst downside of this is, I meditated for a few minutes.
I might feel better and I might just stay the same, but I'm not going to feel worse. And if I do, it's part of the process that I trust. So doing that simultaneously, and that was when I went to a week-long event with Dr. Joe Dispenza, which, you know, if I look back now, it's like, wow, I was so internal. I was so really in my own process. And and that's just beautiful, to allow yourself to not be the sunshine, but just be, you're just you. You're here for yourself, and you're going to make this count for yourself.
It's interesting that as well, isn't it? Because we're both extroverts, I would say, quite comfortably. And I know that even that label can be a bit to wear at times, because I know when I go to do my own work, and what I'm hearing from you at this juncture as well, is there are times in our life where just because I'm an extrovert and I recharge externally doesn't mean that, or sometimes there's even more value in me turning inwards and just saying, hey, enough's enough for the minute. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's a lot of growth available to, I guess, just say extroverts in general, to sort of introvert in for a little bit. And yeah, just to sort of feel what it looks like to be sort of encompassed in your own energy and not sort of just be putting it here, there, everywhere. And I'm conscious that even sounds loaded, because even over the last 6 years, as I've been doing some of that myself at different phases, I've still always had the podcast. It's still been that, you know, but but you know when it's different. You know when it's different. You know when you're in a phase where it's like, yeah, I can, you know, I'm getting a lot from giving, or actually I'm getting a lot from receiving from myself, you know. And so at this particular period, you're getting a lot from receiving from yourself as you've gone to Joe.
Yes. Yeah. And that year, particularly last year too, I canceled everything, every training I had, every work, every trip, everything, except for the training to become the NCS trainer with Dr. Joe's work. Even though I felt like facilitation, coaching, not for me anymore, but maybe this will open doors for me that I have no idea about, but I'll still do that.
Was that a thought, or was that intuition again?
That was intuition. That was intuition for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it was also because last year wasn't the first time that the work has helped me so much. I started with his meditations 5 years ago when I was healing my precancerous cells in my cervix. I got introduced to his meditations and his work, and I was like, this sounds good. I'm going to do this. And I just, again, like, what's the worst case that could happen? You know, worst case scenario is I meditated in the morning and at night. And I had this mystical experience 5 months or 4 months after I started meditating with it, and went to a naturopath, and I did a few alternative treatments. And I had this moment with my parents again. We were in New York City in an apartment, meeting each other halfway between Germany and California.
Yeah.
And my stepdad was smoking at the time. And he was on his way downstairs, looking at the kitchen table, seeing all my supplements from turkey tail mushrooms and green tea, whatever, you know, it was vitamin C, all the things that I needed to heal, or that I, you know, my body really appreciated to heal. And he looked at it with his cigarette in his hand. He's like, that can't be healthy. It's like, yes. I love your reaction. I just love it.
Sometimes you just need to get grounded like that, though, you know? Like, sometimes the freight train of groundedness just needs to hit you square between the eyes that freaking hard. It's just like, yeah, thanks, Dad.
Yeah. And, you know, I can meditate as much as I want, but that moment, I fucking lost it. I lost it. And it was also because I was just, I mean, my parents were super worried about me and my safety and my decisions at that point. And I was disappointed because they never checked in with me during my health journey. So that just exploded into a huge argument. Yeah. Tears, everything. And nobody understands the other person. In the random moment, I just have this flash of a vision that, you know, when an artist, like a sculpturist, exposes their first time their
the curtain
with like
reveal,
this, the curtain review or something, and this is what it felt like. This is what I saw within milliseconds, that my cervix was just ta-da. It's revealed, and it's like, okay, what was that? But back to the argument, and then later when I was in bed, I was like, what just happened?
That? Yeah, what was that?
And I was like, I tuned into it. I was like, I'm healed. I knew it. Wow. I just knew I'm healed. And I talked to my very close friend at the time, who has been with me the entire time too. It was like, okay, but still get a test, okay? Can you still get like, can you still, you know, go to the doctor and get the results?
Do the grounded,
I was like, I don't need to, you know? Because I did. And I was healed. And so the cancerous cell, or precancerous cells on the cervix were healed within like 4 months. And And that was incredible. And I knew in my meditations, I would go into how would you feel? What would you do when you were healed? And that changed over time. You know, in the beginning, it was the doctor's going to say yes. Or I would tell my friends about it. Or, and then it just evolved to different things that I really would feel differently. I would act differently.
Was it dark at some point, having that diagnosis, or?
It was definitely shaking up my world in the beginning.
When you say beginning, how long's it?
When I first heard it from the doctor, but interestingly, again, intuition and body awareness, it wasn't a surprise. I knew something was up. Like I knew something wasn't right.
And then at that point, you gravitated towards Dr. Joe's meditations because it felt right, and also same thing again. It seems to be a pattern. It's like the worst thing that'll happen is I'll just meditate a bit.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, because it's something, you know, the worst case was if nothing great happened to the cells on my cervix, it would be so deep that it only radiation or chemo. That's what the doctor said would help. And I talked to 3 doctors. They would all do the same procedure, the LEAP procedure, and I just, every time I went out of those offices, it was like, if I'm imagining that I would do that procedure and I'm putting myself into that future Steffi, I just wouldn't trust that it was healed. I would just wait for it to come back. And I just like, as illogical as it may sound in that moment, but I just had to trust that. I was like, that doesn't feel like healing to me. So I looked at some alternatives, what to do, how to heal on the cellular level. And a friend of mine who I met just before I moved from Berlin to San Diego at that time, who has healed himself with alternative medicine. He had a cancer in his throat. And so I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I'm in this situation right now, and you're the person I'm thinking about. Do you have any advice? Can you be there for me? And he said, if I had it now, I would do things differently, and I would do Dr. Joe's work. And he introduced me to it, and I was like, thanks. And I did it. I just listened to a few podcasts that he had out at that time, and then I did the meditations.
Incredible. I'm cognizant that it could. Yeah, I'm so like I'm thrilled, and it's such a testament to Joe's work. There's a part of me that's reserved, and I'm conscious of that. And the part of me that's reserved is, I remember it was different for me. Not that I was on my own healing journey, but I had. She's no longer here in the 3D. Let's put it that way. I still believe she's around, touch wood, but that's my own little kookiness. I had a mentor, and she passed away. And I guess this is vulnerable for me to share, but yeah, I was holding a vision for her to have made it through on the other side when everybody else was saying their goodbyes. And everybody else that was friends with her, like she was late 40s. And for me, that was too early. And for her friends, it was like, it's possible that she could go, and they were saying their goodbyes. And I was infuriated at everybody because it was like, you're creating that reality for her. But I was also, and this was me, I think it's about 5 years ago now, and I was, holding this vision and this reality where actually it's like, no, you've made it through, you've made it through, you've made it through. And it was a very interesting sort of, well, not even sort of, and neither was it interesting. It was painful when she passed.
Yeah.
And that's not to put a damper on it, but just to bring another whole dimension into the conversation for us to have like a really full-on conversation about it, from all the dimensions, because there is the opportunity for us to hold a future for us. Because I know now you're trained as facilitating this work. And the question is not, in that particular instance, why didn't it work? That's definitely not the question. The lesson for me was, it was an apt time for me as a young individual to learn that death comes for us all, and that, as an adolescent man, you're invincible. But losing her was the first sort of, I don't want to say chink in that armor, but it was also, it's bigger than that, because, and as Alan Watts puts it, contemplating death is actually the richest soil that you can grow your seeds for life in.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. But it could have gone other ways for you as well. Are you aware of that? Or is your intuition so, nah, this was the way it was always going to happen, and listening to that inner guidance, this was the way for me?
I just want to say thank you for sharing that. Yours, yeah. And I agree with your point that death has, like, we all have a timeline. We all are, I believe that. That core belief. But what I also believe is that the time we have here, we are the creators of how we want to spend it. And I don't think that me doing the other procedures, more the Western medicine, was suggesting would have not worked, even though I had the feeling like I'm going to wait for it to come back. And that could have been my reality. But it wouldn't have killed me, I think. Like, I wasn't afraid of being, like, of that being my way to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's all about who are we becoming. Like, I remember a moment where I got really impatient. And it was, and, as an extremist, I'm like, I'm starting these treatments and I'm starting to meditate. A week later, why is nothing happening?
Yeah. Been to 3 gym sessions already. Where's this?
Yeah. Wait.
What? Huh?
Where are my muscles? Yeah.
Wait, what did I... Wait, huh? I'm like, no. Let's look at the script again. What do I need to re-optimize? And it's like, patience. No. Scribble that one out first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And no, this is good, because my friend was like, what if the pace of your healing wasn't the only measurement of success? Like, look at who you're becoming. Like, and at that point too, I didn't cut out work completely because I really needed to pay rent.
Profound as a statement.
I know. Yeah, I was like so appreciative of that, because and this is just a testament to, it's not about, when we work towards something, and of course this healing journey was to become healthy, but in other situations we want to become abundant, financially abundant, or free time abundant, or more time, more sex, more joy, more friends, I don't know, more houses. And on that journey of working towards that, it's more about who are we becoming than are we actually getting it.
Then we actually get there.
Yeah, because if I tune into what would it feel like if I was healthy, I was full of joy, I felt connected, I felt healthy, I felt XYZ. And could I remain that state after my meditation? If I tune into that, could I remain that state with my eyes open throughout the day? And that's then
magic.
And that's when I show up differently, my behaviors change and my thoughts become different, right? Like, it's all, I mentally rehearse that in my meditation and then show up that way during the day. And I think that's the beauty of this work. And that's why I never stopped meditating once I had this mystical experience of, oh, I'm healed. But I didn't stop meditating because I saw the potential. Again, like, this is like this huge transformation time, but every day there's a potential of becoming something, or becoming a better version of self. Could be minor, could be greater. And that for me is the beauty of this work, when the outcome almost doesn't matter as much anymore. Like, it doesn't matter if I make more money, if I even make money with this work, right? Like, but just me doing this work and being this person right now is so amazing. I feel so good.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not saying that I don't want this anymore, but it's not about that anymore.
I think one of the things that's distilled out of this epic share from yourself. Thank you so much for going there with us. I know we're really prying you open to discuss the inner workings of everything, and you being so gracious about it. Thank you, Sister Bear. The distillation for me was, and I'm gonna have to put a disclaimer in this podcast because everybody's journey is their own. But truthfully, what's distilling for me is you were guided by your intuition. And when I was navigating the journey with my mentor, I was guided by my head.
Mm-hmm.
I was freaking out and I was wanting a different outcome from my head, not really. Well, it was driven by my heart, but I was applying everything I'd learnt up until that point in the Inspired Evolution with my head.
Yeah.
And that's what's distilled in the difference between the two stories that we shared, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
Touch wood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very illuminating for me on a personal level.
Yeah. What a beautiful reflection.
And now you've gone away and you've been meditating micro changes daily, again and again, again and again, again and again. The difference that you sort of found in yourself going, hey, every day I'm going to be a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different. But at the same time, meditation is such a practice to just be. And I find this all the time. And this used to actually, I've gone through different iterations on the Inspired Evolution website as I go through the evolution. As you will. I'm actually really, touch wood, somehow, like I'm really grateful that the Inspired Evolution the name is just so, it helps. Because I'm inspired, I'm evolving, like the tagline may change from time to time. It's always been live a life you love, but even under there it's been like, peace and purpose, and then there's been being and becoming. And this dance between the two. Because you meet a lot of teachers teaching you how to become who you want to be. And you also meet a lot of teachers that are inviting you back to just being.
Yeah.
And there's wisdom in both.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way. But that's, I guess, my perspective on it. And I have shot the question a little bit, but I would like to ask you your perspective on being, becoming, the dance between the two. Because, you're meditating all the time. The invitation is to come back into the present moment. And yet there's this consistent persistence for becoming. Tell us about that.
Oh, it's such a rich dance. Like, I love that question. Because it is like what I mentioned earlier, like the obsession. When I notice I can become obsessed with becoming and better and improvement and change, then I know something is up. I know it gets unhealthy. Even the healthiest habits can become unhealthy. And coming home to, even if nothing changes, if I don't become a better communicator, if I don't become better at what I do, if I don't become a more caring friend, daughter, partner, whatever it is, I'm whole. I'm enough. Whatever resonates, I'm enough. I'm everything. I'm whole. I'm loved. And that is the beauty too. Like, can I just be present and happy with what is and grateful and dancing between both. And I think that's where also there are days where meditation practice looks different than only tuning into the future potential. Also days where it's just myself,
My query is an interesting one at this juncture because I'm finding the being always brings you home to yourself, which I think is a beautiful aspect of coming back to being. But I do wonder if the becoming is ever changing, because I'm sure that, like you said, that obsessive becoming driven by the self-worth healing, it's like, if I can do this and this and this and this and this, then I'm worthy. And then it's like, and then I can achieve that. And then it's like, I achieved that. And that's who I'm becoming. And it's like, actually, a lot of this was driven by this, oh crap, there's that wound. Okay. And then you're healing it.
Exactly.
And now there is still a frequency of becoming, or still the wisdom of becoming, but it's driven from a different place, would you say? Can you
Yes.
not coming from a wounded place to
Yeah, that was beautifully phrased. Like it's exactly that, I think. If we're unwhole or if we don't feel worthy, our change can come from I need to prove myself, I need validation, I need to, it can even be I need to have my father like me even though I don't really want to be in touch with him, right? Like but unconsciously there can be this like I need validation, I need this approval, I need the acknowledgement. I need to be someone to be loved. And if I don't do that, I'm not loved, I'm not worthy. And if I heal these wounds and if I get in touch and if I come home to I'm whole, then the motivation or the inspiration to evolve or the inspiration to or the ambition to do something differently or to become somebody differently or somebody else is not coming from lack but from inspiration. Like I don't want to be a bigger public speaker because I need to prove it. I just really love it, and I can now own without being ashamed of it that I love being on stage. And I love being that. And if I have something motivational, inspirational, and beautiful to share with the people, especially further down the line with women and female identified girls, then absolutely do I want to take that stage and do I want to do it, right? So that's just, the energy is very different than I want to become a coach and make so much money and then my father is going to be proud of me. And he will never be, like that is just very, very different. And then I think that's where the becoming can be, like the source of becoming is important.
Is that why being is such a safe orientation? Because it's always home and it's less of a landmine in terms of what's driving you back to being.
Yeah. And I think, once you've done a lot of work and once you've become comfortable in being, then it's like home and you feel safe. But what rang to me when you just said, being feels safe, I'm like, I think a lot of people are even afraid of doing breath work or doing a meditation, even if it's a 5-minute one, because it's scary to sit with your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's scary to sit still and let the truth come up or in or out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's that, different stages, different phases are definitely, right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there, sometimes it's not even about being or becoming, I remember there was a phase where I was struggling with depression. It was, where I had been, it was just like, now it's like, where, man, it was like, well, just could not run fast enough from those demons.
Yeah.
And I guess it's interesting because you and I are having this conversation and I know you, people know me, and we are both, I would say, meeting Steffi at Mind Valley University was this immediate like zizzing, like you just have this with some, like, I would say with some people it's actually like, touch wood, I connect with a lot of people, but there was this moment where it was like, like this person, like it was just, some may say I've met you in another life. I don't know what that means really, but there was just this like, like whatever I get, she gets, whatever she gets, I get, and it was just really dope to meet my sister. And so in that, you guys kind of know that Amrit's bubbly, Amrit's vivacious, and this episode has been quite unpacky in terms of going to deeper, darker places. And I think, touch wood, oftentimes people reflect, it's like very hard to sort of picture, Amrit, that you went through depression, like you're upbeat, you're positive, and I think there's the opportunity to just reflect that there's always that choice in terms of how we showed up, which is what you said earlier. And thank you for honouring that, potentially the resilience that you carry, comes from the depth of, what you've potentially plumbed into that well in the first place through having to have a look at some of your stuff. So at the ambition to sort of turn a corner to not have to be so heavy in the conversation, because there is quite a remarkable place to be when both your being and becoming are aligned.
Oh my God, so good.
Right? Yeah. And this is where the coaching becomes super addictive because it's like, oh, dude. It's like, this is like your infinite potential. It's like, and I think this part of the conversation definitely deserves its airtime equally as much from where we've been, because I often remark upon this, we were talking a lot about the inspired illusion because we haven't caught up in 5 years, so you're asking me questions. And, I have to say, this has been one of the most remarkable vehicles, if you want to call it that, so 3D, in my life, though, because as I'm talking to you right now, I'm being a brother to a sister, I'm being an interviewer, I'm learning to listen better, I'm learning empathy, I'm being, right? But it's also facilitating Amrit, the future speaker, Amrit, the future coach, Amrit, the future podcaster. And it's the being is facilitating the becoming, and the becoming is facilitating the being. And it's like, and then it's like this lining up of things. Your reflections on that, Sister Bear, because I see you just nodding your way through. Your sentiments on the being and the becoming lining up.
Yeah, I love how you phrased it. And what I feel now is as a reflection of, wow, I didn't even feel like me sharing whatever I shared didn't even feel heavy or dark. It just felt like it feels inspiring to me. But it's also because I'm so in love with life. And that's when the being and the and that's when the being and the becoming, like you say, is just, they're dancing together, and there's no, I feel like if we're metaphorically speaking, there is no fighting between them. Like we can all coexist, and we can trust in the pace that we're evolving and becoming. We can trust in the pace that we're being sometimes. And there's just ease in it. And I can't say it differently than being in love with life. And that's usually also like what I go for in my emotional, what do I become? What do I want to become? I was like, I just want to be in love with life. So I want to be in joy with life and in love with life. Yeah.
So how is this different to when we started the conversation? You took us back to, there was so much success, but there was something waiting to pop versus where you are now. Can you describe the difference between those two zeniths and the sort of pit you've gone through? Oh, the what was it? The soul canyon you've gone through. Yeah. What's the difference between these two summits?
I think it's similar to what you shared about you're experiencing where your mentor passed, but you're experiencing how you want it. You didn't want it to end, and that came from your heart and your head, right? It didn't come from knowing or from intuition. And a year and a half ago, it all came from my mindset. This is right. This is how it should be. These are the shoulds. These are the frameworks. These are the social conditions. These are your own conditions. And it felt more forced. Even though some during that time, doors were opening, and it was just like, oh my God, this financial abundance door finally opened after 4 years or so. Like, that's incredible. But then the way it was just felt more forced. And now there are so many uncertain moments and uncertain elements in my life. And yet it just feels really like, it's just, it doesn't just feel alive. And there are definitely days and moments where I'm like, what? How am I here? And why I'm sad? And, but there's more trust. There's more, maybe even more love to the process. And the knowing, the inner knowing, the intuition that we're on the right path here. Like, there's nothing that I'd rather do. Like, usually there would be moments like, maybe I should do that. Maybe it wasn't the right decision to go left or right, like maybe I should try this. But there's never a moment right now where I think I should do something else. I should be somewhere else. It's just right. It's that feeling,
Thank you so much for sharing yourself so abundantly, man. This is, been quite the plumbing of the soul, actually. And by plumbing, just really understanding all the places that we can grow, heal. And I think, obviously, you're a coach, and so I think there's a real gift that we get to revel in this conversation with you, being able to articulate the nuances, the subtle differences, like they're like, as separate as light and day, when usually they're really hard to spot. You've got a real gift there, and it's been really, really a gift to receive that. For those that are curious about, they're undergoing their own transformation, they can feel sort of the disparity that you were describing at the beginning, and there's more for them to potentially unlock or come home to, is probably what I would sort of articulate. What would you like? How's the best way to get in touch with you, and is that a great way to start doing the work? Get in touch with you and sort of find out, what would you recommend?
That's one way for sure. Yeah, to get in touch with me, and even if we find out that we're not a great fit, I'm happy to share my opinion. What would be? You can find me on steffiseefeld.com. And or on LinkedIn. These two are my active platforms. Yeah,
Awesome.
Steffi Seefeld.
Yeah, and then the resources for sure that we'll link into the show notes below is also Dr. Joe's meditations. And we'll put a link to Soul Canyon and also Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, because I think a lot of our conversation today was informed by those two incredible resources as well. And obviously a link to all your work.
The training that I'm facilitating is called Change Your Mind, Create No Results. It's actually based on breaking the habits of being yourself. And that's a 2-day program with a 4-week of coaching and integration after that.
And the best way for people to find that is also on your website?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool.
And because I love you and I love your audience so much, you get a 20% discount with Inspired.
Hey, dude, thank you so much. That is such a generous gift. And we'll put the link to that in the show notes below with the code. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Steffi.
You're welcome. Yay.
A very interesting point in this conversation, and I'm conscious where time's at. But this is probably on some level inappropriate for me to do so. But some part of me doesn't give a shit because I'm your brother.
I love it.
Now I'm a dad. And I've actually here's, before I go into it, I'll give you this word. We talked about identity before, and a word that's been coming to me is, so when I first, we're talking about like how I was going, and dadding can be like, the first 6 months was really intense, right? And then now it's like, there's a lot in there. Touchwood is the word that's been coming for me has been responsibility. And how Mind Valley like invents words. So this is the word Amrit invented.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Right? Okay.
Because you're still gonna have to be responsible. Like, you still have to be able to respond, but it's like refunding responsibility in a way. It's like responsibility, right? And if I'm gonna show up with all this stuff, I'm gonna make it fun and I'm gonna make it my own. And so that's been this whole journey of becoming a father for me. And showing up with, still doing the things that's like, oh, now I really got to keep a roof over our heads, and at the same time also like, how fun, like who am I keeping a roof over? You, little man. Like, touch wood. So there's all of that. But I'm going to take a bit of a liberty with becoming a father, and just letting you know that as your brother, and definitely not stepping into the shoes of your father, but Sister Bear, like, you're so loved. And like, I see you wholly and solely, and it's it actually hurts to sort of feel that what men can do to women, and that we could leave you feeling less than whole after you give us so much. Like, you give us everything. You give us life. Actually, I've watched my wife birth, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
I love you so much. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you. I feel that. And while you were sharing it, like how women give birth, like that's why we're here, because we have the ability to birth you. And I didn't think about these two stories. It's my cervix, that's the portal of life, and then my dad, and now you're bringing it together. Like, I don't know if you saw that, but I didn't see it until now. So thank you.
Wow. Touch wood.
Wow.
Man,
Yeah.
this has been such an epic podcast. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
how you show up, what you show up for. And, I really cannot just thank you for today's conversation. It is a life's work that informs it, and yeah, you being here, sharing yourself so openly and abundantly with us has given us so much to really think and feel into. And yeah, really grateful for you, sister.
Oh, I'm so grateful that it resonates, and it was such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I'm so glad we're connected. So glad.
On behalf of myself and the Inspired Evolution Tribe, wishing you all the best. And dear tribe, my God, you guys listened all the way to the end of another episode. You are so inspired to evolve. You are totally my hero. So thank you so much, and heroines. And thank you so much for tuning in all the way to the end. You guys are incredible. It is an absolute honor for both of us, Amrit and Steffi, to be your brother, your sister, walking home by your side. As always, guys, stay inspired. Keep evolving. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to its end. Obviously, you absolutely love this podcast, and I want to thank you so much for watching this all the way through. Here is another video that's perfectly curated just for you to watch as the next best video to keep your inspiration flowing, to keep you evolving, to keep you going. Check it out now.